A billionaire's empire hangs by a thread, but his greatest battle is fought in silence. In the heart of Atlanta, Daniel Carter lies in a hospital bed, scarred from a plane crash that was no accident. Betrayed by those he trusted most, he's awake listening, plotting, and ready to reclaim his legacy. From a coma to a revolution, this is a story of resilience, courage, and the power to turn pain into purpose. Will Daniel rise from the ashes to change the world, or will the shadows of betrayal consume him? Dive into this gripping tale of redemption and let it ignite your own fire. Like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that stir your soul. Don't miss a second, join us now. In the dead of night, a billionaire lay silent, but he heard everything. The private wing of Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, was a cocoon of sterile calm, pierced only by the steady beep of a heart monitor. Daniel Carter, a 45-year-old tech titan and one of the rare black CEOs commanding a Fortune 500 empire, rested motionless in a pristine hospital bed. A jagged scar slashed across his forehead, the sole mark of a catastrophic plane crash that had nearly stolen his life. To the doctors, nurses, and the world beyond, Daniel was lost in a deep coma, a powerful man reduced to fragility. But behind those closed eyes, a fire burned. Daniel Carter was awake. He had been for days. And he was listening. This wasn't a hospital bed, it was a battlefield. And Daniel was waging a silent war to uncover who had tried to kill him. The truth, he knew, would shatter everything he'd built. Carter Innovations, his tech empire, had redefined renewable energy, but it had also made enemies. The crash was no accident. Someone had sabotaged his private jet, and Daniel's only weapon was his secrecy. By feigning unconsciousness, he turned his vulnerability into a trap, catching every whispered betrayal in the sterile air of his room. Each word was a clue, each visitor a potential traitor. At 45, Daniel had clawed his way to the top, defying prejudice in boardrooms where he was often the only black face. He'd faced skepticism, microaggressions, and outright hostility, yet he'd built a company that powered cities and dreams. But now, as he lay still, the weight of his success felt heavier than ever. Who could he trust? His wife, Sophia, who'd stood by him for a decade? His brother, Ethan, who ran operations at his side? Or was the enemy someone or something bigger, lurking beyond his reach? The monitor beeped steadily, a metronome to his racing thoughts. Every second he played this dangerous game, the stakes grew higher. A single slight a twitch, a breath too deep could expose him. But Daniel was no stranger to risk. He'd built an empire on calculated moves, and now he'd use that same precision to unravel the conspiracy threatening to bury him. The silence of the hospital room was deceptive. Beneath it, a storm was brewing, and Daniel Carter, the man everyone thought was broken, was ready to strike. No one suspected the man in the coma was listening, but the truth was about to cut deeper than any blade. In the sterile silence of Emory University Hospital's private wing, Daniel Carter lay motionless, his mind a storm of calculation and dread. The scar on his forehead throbbed faintly, a reminder of the plane crash that was no accident. He'd been awake for days, feigning unconsciousness to unmask the traitor who'd sabotaged his jet. But nothing could have prepared him for the voices that drifted through the glass door of his room, voices that belonged to the people he trusted most. The heart monitor beeped steadily, masking the fury building in his chest. Sophia Carter, his wife of 10 years, spoke first, her voice low but sharp with urgency. "We can't keep dragging this out, Ethan. The board's getting restless and the investors are circling like vultures. We need to move now." Ethan Carter, Daniel's younger brother and the COO of Carter Innovations, responded with a chilling calm. "Patience, Sophia. Dr. Harris has the medical reports locked down. A few more days and the board will trigger the incapacitation clause. The company's ours." Daniel's blood ran cold, but he forced his breathing to stay even. His own family, his wife and brother, were orchestrating a coup. Their plan was ruthless: falsify medical records to declare him brain dead, then seize control of Carter Innovations, the tech empire he'd built from nothing. The betrayal stung like a physical wound, sharper than the crash that had nearly killed him. Sophia's voice cut through again, laced with contempt. "What about Rachel Brooks? That lawyer of his keeps sniffing around, demanding the original test results. Ethan's laugh was icy. Rachel's finished. I've planted enough dirt in her office to spark an ethics probe. She'll be disbarred before she can cause trouble. Rage surged through Daniel, threatening to break his facade. Rachel Brooks, his law school mentor and one of the few black attorneys in their cutthroat world, was more than his lawyer Shay was family. She'd stood by him through every battle, from hostile boardrooms to biased investors. To hear her targeted in this conspiracy was almost unbearable. But Daniel held still, his mind racing to piece together the puzzle. The plane crash wasn't just an attempt on his life. It was the opening gambit in a meticulously planned takeover. Solar flare, his secret project to bring affordable solar energy to underserved communities, was at the heart of it. He'd kept its details from the board, knowing its potential to disrupt the energy industry would make enemies. Now, it was clear. Sophia and Ethan weren't just after his company, they were selling out his vision to protect their own greed. The monitor's beep felt like a countdown. Each word Daniel overheard tightened the knot in his chest, but it also sharpened his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore, he was fighting for everything he'd built, for the people who believed in him, and for the communities Solar Flare was meant to uplift. The hospital room, once a prison, was now his war room. And Daniel Carter, the man they thought was helpless, was already plotting his next move. Just when betrayal threatened to drown him, a stranger's voice became his lifeline. In the dimly lit private wing of Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, Daniel Carter lay motionless, his body a silent fortress concealing a mind ablaze with fury and strategy. The scar on his forehead, a remnant of the sabotage plane crash, pulsed faintly as he processed the chilling truth. His wife, Sophia, and brother, Ethan, were plotting to steal Carter Innovations by declaring him brain dead. Their callous words, overheard through the glass door, had shattered his trust. But Daniel's resolve only hardened. He was awake, feigning coma to unmask their conspiracy, and every moment in that hospital bed was a calculated step toward justice. The heart monitor's steady beep cloaked his racing pulse, but the weight of betrayal pressed heavier than ever. Then, a new sound broke the sterile silence light, deliberate footsteps approaching his bed. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," came a voice, clear and professional, devoid of the pitying tone others used. "I'm Olivia, your new night nurse." A faint scent of citrus followed her as she checked his vitals with practiced precision. "Your readings are stable," she noted, scribbling on a chart. Then she paused, sitting beside him, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm of his thoughts. "I don't know if you can hear me," she whispered, her voice dropping to a confessional hush. "But I need to tell you something. I shouldn't be here." Daniel's curiosity surged, but he kept his breathing steady, betraying nothing. "I was hired 3 days ago after your last nurse quit out of nowhere," Olivia continued. "Last night, I was reviewing your records, and something didn't add up. Your sedation levels are way too high for your condition, far beyond standard protocol. And the reflex reports? They're inconsistent, almost fabricated." She leaned closer, her voice barely audible. "I'm not just a nurse, Mr. Carter. I'm a forensic neurologist, and I can tell you this. Someone is deliberately keeping you sedated to stop your recovery." The words hit Daniel like a jolt of electricity, yet he remained still, his mind racing. In a world where his closest allies had turned against him, this stranger and outsider with no reason to care had uncovered the truth. Olivia's voice softened, tinged with determination. "I don't know who's doing this or why, but I promise you, I'll find out. I'm reducing your sedation gradually, so no one notices. In a few days, you should start showing signs of consciousness. Hang on, Mr. Carter, you're not alone." As she adjusted his IV drip, a flicker of hope pierced the darkness of Daniel's isolation. For days, he'd been a lone warrior, trapped in a body he couldn't move, surrounded by enemies wearing familiar faces. Now, Olivia's words offered a lifeline, a chance to fight back. But trust was a luxury he could barely afford. Could he rely on this woman, whose motives were still unclear? Or was she another piece in the deadly game being played around him? The monitor's rhythm steadied his thoughts, pulling him back to strategy. Olivia's expertise was a weapon, her resolve a spark. If she was telling the truth, she just handed him the key to turn his prison into a stronghold. Daniel's plan, once a faint outline, began to sharpen. He would use her knowledge, test her loyalty, and build a counterattack that would catch Sophia and Ethan off guard. The hospital room, once a cage, was transforming into the heart of his resistance. And Daniel Carter, the man they thought was broken, had just found the ally who could change everything. But the fight was just beginning, and Daniel was no longer alone. In the shadowed confines of Emory University Hospital's private wing in Atlanta, Daniel Carter lay still, his body a silent shield masking a mind sharpened by betrayal. The scar on his forehead, a stark reminder of the sabotaged plane crash, burned with every heartbeat as he processed the gut-wrenching truth. His wife, Sophia, and brother Ethan were conspiring to seize Carter Innovations by falsifying his medical records. Yet, in the midst of this treachery, a beacon had emerged. Olivia, his night nurse and a forensic neurologist, who'd uncovered the deliberate overuse of sedatives, keeping him trapped in a false coma. Her whispered promise to help had ignited a spark of hope, transforming Daniel's hospital bed from a prison into a command center. Now, with Olivia as his ally, Daniel was ready to turn the tables. The heart monitor's steady rhythm cloaked his racing thoughts as he and Olivia forged a clandestine alliance. On the third night, when she asked, "Can you me?" Daniel twitched his index finger one subtle yes. Olivia's eyes widened, but her composure held. "We need a code," she whispered, glancing at the door. "One twitch for yes, two for no. Blink once if you agree." A single blink sealed their pact. Using lettered cards, Daniel spelled out the truth. "Sophia and Ethan sabotaged my plane." Olivia's shock was palpable, but her resolve deepened. "Why?" she pressed. "Solar Flare," Daniel signaled. Solar Flare, Carter Innovations' covert project to deliver affordable solar energy to marginalized communities, was a game-changer that threatened the energy industry's giants. Daniel had kept it secret from the board, but Sophia and Ethan had betrayed him to protect their own interests. Olivia didn't just listen, she acted. Late at night, she recorded a damning conversation in the hospital corridor between Ethan and Dr. Harris, the complicit physician. "Keep him sedated until the board votes," Ethan instructed, his voice cold. "A coma patient this long? Accidents happen." The words sent a chill through Daniel, but they were gold irrefutable evidence of their plot. Olivia's ingenuity didn't stop there. She sent an anonymous tip to Rachel Brooks, Daniel's trusted lawyer, warning her of the fabricated ethics probe designed to discredit her. "Rachel's sharp," Olivia whispered, adjusting Daniel's fort to further reduce the sedatives. "She'll see through their lies." Daniel's trust in Olivia grew, but caution lingered. Could he fully rely on this woman who'd risked so much for a stranger? Each night, their partnership strengthened. Olivia guided Daniel through secret exercises, flexing his fingers, tensing his muscles to rebuild his strength without arousing suspicion. Every small movement was a defiance, a step toward the moment he'd confront his betrayers. The hospital room, once a cage, buzzed with silent rebellion. Daniel's plan crystallized: gather undeniable proof, protect Rachel, and strike when Ethan and Sophia least expected it. The stakes were dizzying. One misstep could expose him, leaving him vulnerable to those who'd already tried to kill him. But Daniel had built an empire by outsmarting doubters, and now, with Olivia's expertise and courage, he was crafting a counterattack that would shake Carter Innovations to its core. As the heart monitor beeped on, Daniel felt a surge of determination. The conspirators thought they'd won, but they'd underestimated the man they'd left for dead. Hey, if this story of betrayal and resilience is gripping you, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Your support fuels us to bring you more stories that inspire and ignite. Let's keep this journey going. Join us for the next chapter of Daniel's fight. The battle was far from over, and Daniel Carter was ready to reclaim his legacy. The moment of truth had arrived, and no one saw it coming. In the sleek, glass-walled boardroom of Carter Innovations in Atlanta, tension hung like a storm cloud. Ethan Carter stood at the head of the table, his polished demeanor masking the ambition that pulsed beneath. He distributed falsified medical reports with a practiced air of sorrow, declaring, "My brother Daniel has suffered irreversible brain damage. Doctor, Harris recommends we transfer executive powers to stabilize the company." Sophia Carter, Daniel's wife, sat beside him, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, her bare ring finger betraying her feigned grief. The board 12 impeccably dressed executives shifted uneasily, their trust in Ethan wavering under the weight of his too-perfect narrative. Aisha Thompson, the only black board member and Daniel's longtime ally, gripped the documents tightly, her eyes narrowing. "This feels orchestrated, Ethan," she said, her voice steady but laced with suspicion. Daniel was in perfect health before the crash. Ethan's smile tightened, but before he could respond, the boardroom doors swung open with a force that silenced the room. Daniel Carter stepped inside, his navy suit crisp, his presence commanding despite the ebony cane he leaned on. The scar on his forehead gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a badge of survival. Flanking him were Olivia, his forensic neurologist nurse, and Rachel Brooks, his fiercely loyal lawyer, her black briefcase brimming with evidence. Gasps rippled through the room, chairs scraping as board members leaned forward in disbelief. Ethan's face drained of color, his voice a choked whisper. "Impossible! You're in a coma," the weight of his words sinking in. Olivia stepped forward, placing a stack of neurological tests on the table. "As a forensic neurologist, I can confirm Mr. Carter was kept in an artificially induced coma with no medical justification. His recovery was deliberately sabotaged." Rachel opened her briefcase, distributing damning evidence. Bank records tracing payments from Ethan to Dr. Harris, starting days before the crash, and a video captured by Olivia. The tablet played Ethan's voice, cold and unmistakable, from a hospital hallway. "Keep him sedated until the board votes. A coma patient this long? Accidents happen." The board watched in stunned silence, the betrayal laid bare. Sophia stammered, her voice shrill. "This is nonsense. Daniel had a tragic accident." Daniel's eyes locked on hers, his tone icy. "A convenient accident, Sophia, timed perfectly with your push to restructure company shares. And where's your wedding ring? Already planning to sell it with my house?" He turned to the board, his voice rising with conviction. "Solar flare was the target. My project to bring affordable energy to underserved communities threatened their allies in the energy sector. They tried to bury it, tan me." Aisha stood, her voice trembling with righteous anger. "This is attempted murder, corporate fraud, and a betrayal of everything Daniel built." Security guards entered quietly, their presence a silent command. "The police are waiting downstairs," Daniel said, his calm belying the storm within. As Ethan and Sophia were escorted out, Ethan's desperation erupted. "Solar flare will tank us. The investors will flee." Daniel's response was unwavering. "It's not ruin, Ethan. It's the future." "And the investors? They approved solar flare last night while you were plotting my death." The boardroom fell silent, the weight of justice settling over the stunned executives. Daniel stood tall, the man they'd thought broken now, towering over the wreckage of his enemies' schemes. But this victory was only the beginning, and the real battle for his legacy and his purpose was just igniting. From the ashes of betrayal rose a vision that would light up the world. The boardroom showdown at Carter Innovations in Atlanta had left jaws on the floor, with Daniel Carter's dramatic reappearance shattering the conspiracy of his wife, Sophia, and brother Ethan. Their plot to declare him brain dead and seize his tech empire had crumbled under the weight of irrefutable evidence, bank records, a chilling video, and neurological tests, proving Daniel's coma was artificially induced. As security escorted the stunned traitors to awaiting police, Daniel stood tall, his scar a badge of survival, his resolve a beacon for the board. The victory was sweet, but it was only the greater transformation. 6 months later, Atlanta's skyline shimmered under a summer sun, and Carter Innovations was unrecognizable not just in its gleaming headquarters, now adorned with solar flare panels, but in its very soul. Ethan Carter, convicted of attempted murder and corporate fraud, was serving a 12-year sentence in a Georgia penitentiary. Sophia, after a plea deal that exposed her lesser but still damning role, faced 7 years behind bars. Dr. Harris, the complicit physician who'd falsified Daniel's medical records, had his license revoked and awaited trial for medical negligence. The headlines had screamed justice, but for Daniel, the real triumph was what came next. Solar flare, the revolutionary solar energy project at the heart of the conspiracy, was no longer a secret. It was a movement. The first pilot program, launched in Atlanta's underserved West End neighborhood, slashed energy bills by 75%, powering homes, schools, and community centers with clean, affordable energy. Children studied under bright lights, families gathered without fear of crippling utility costs, and the community buzzed with hope. The success wasn't just local. Carter Innovation stocks soared 38% after the announcement of a nationwide rollout, proving that doing good could also mean doing well. Investors who'd once balked at Daniel's social mission now clamored to back it, drawn by both profit and purpose. The transformation ran deeper than numbers. Daniel had restructured Carter Innovations to reflect the lessons of his near-death experience. The company's new research lab teamed with young scientists from diverse backgrounds: Black, Latino, Native American, first-generation immigrants, people who'd been overlooked by traditional tech giants. Daniel knew their potential because he'd lived it, rising from a modest upbringing to break barriers in a world that rarely welcomed him. The culture shift was palpable. Where once boardrooms echoed with skepticism, now they hummed with collaboration and innovation. Yet, the most profound change was personal. Daniel established the Carter Wright Foundation for Healthcare Ethics, named in honor of Olivia, the nurse who'd risked everything to save him. The foundation, funded by 30% of Solar Flare's profits, implemented safeguards for vulnerable patients across Georgia's hospitals. Password, protected cameras in critical care units, mandatory double-checking of medications, and independent ombudsman to ensure accountability. Olivia's name on the foundation wasn't just a tribute, it was a testament to the power of one person's courage to challenge injustice. Standing in his redesigned office, Daniel gazed out at Atlanta, the city that had shaped him. The weight of the past 6 months settled briefly, a quiet moment of reflection amid the whirlwind of change. He'd nearly lost everything: his company, his legacy, his life, but the betrayal had forged something stronger. Solar Flare wasn't just about energy, it was about equity, about giving communities a chance to thrive, just as he'd been given a chance. The foundation wasn't just about reform, it was about ensuring no one else would suffer the way he had, trapped in a body silenced by greed. The heart monitor's beep, once a haunting rhythm in his hospital room, had been replaced by the hum of solar panels and the chatter of a revitalized company. But the story wasn't over. Whispers of a larger conspiracy lingered. From his prison cell, Ethan had hinted at powerful figures in the energy sector who'd backed the sabotage, names that could shake industries. Daniel chose to let the truth simmer, confident it would surface when the time was right. For now, he focused on building, not destroying. The hospital bed had taught him resilience. Olivia's courage had shown him trust, and Solar Flare had given him purpose. As he walked through the lab, watching a young engineer tweak a solar prototype, Daniel felt a surge of pride. This was his legacy, not just a company, but a movement that would outlast him. The conspirators had tried to bury him, but instead they'd awakened a force that would change the world. Yet, the true victory was not in reclaiming his empire, but in rediscovering his purpose. 6 months after Daniel Carter's seismic return to Carter Innovations' boardroom in Atlanta, the city pulsed with the energy of his vision. The conspiracy that nearly ended his life, orchestrated by his wife Sophia and brother Ethan, had been dismantled, their convictions for attempted murder and fraud sending shockwaves through corporate America. Solar Flare, the revolutionary solar energy project they tried to bury, now powered communities across Atlanta's West End, slashing energy bills and illuminating futures. Carter Innovations' stock had surged, its labs buzzed with diverse talent, and the Carter Wright Foundation, named for the courageous nurse Olivia, was reforming healthcare ethics nationwide. But for Daniel, standing in his sleek office overlooking the city, the real transformation was internal, a profound shift, born from the crucible of betrayal. The heart monitor's beep, once a haunting echo of his hospital prison, had faded, replaced by the hum of purpose. Yet, as he gazed at the skyline, Daniel's mind turned inward, wrestling with the lessons that had reshaped him. "I thought I knew what pain was," he said softly, his voice steady but heavy with reflection. "I'd faced prejudice in every boardroom, fought skepticism at every turn, as a black man building an empire in a world that rarely welcomed me. But nothing prepared me for the knife of betrayal from my own family." The words hung in the air, a quiet admission of vulnerability. Sophia's cold ambition, Ethan's calculated greed, they'd torn through the trust he'd built over decades. Lying in that hospital bed, feigning a coma while their voices plotted his demise, Daniel had felt stripped bare, his power reduced to the rhythm of his breath. The scar on his forehead, a jagged reminder of the sabotaged plane crash, wasn't just a mark of survival. It was a symbol of the moment he'd been forced to confront his own fragility. "In that room," he continued, his gaze distant, "I was powerless. No money, no influence, no control. Just me, my thoughts, and the weight of knowing the people I loved most wanted me gone." The memory stung, a raw wound that hadn't fully healed. But then came Olivia, the nurse who saw through the lies, who risked her career to reduce his sedatives and uncover the truth. Her courage, unprompted, unselfish, had been a lifeline. "She didn't know me," Daniel said, a faint smile breaking through. "I was just a patient, a stranger. But she fought for me because it was right." That's when I realized, power isn't wealth or status. It's the courage to stand up, to build something bigger than yourself, even when the world tells you to stay silent. The realization had been a turning point, a quiet moment of clarity amid the chaos. Solar Flare wasn't just a project. It was a promise to the communities he'd come from, to the kids who deserved a chance, to the dreamers who'd been told their ideas didn't matter. The Cartwright Foundation wasn't just reform, it was a shield for the vulnerable, ensuring no one else would suffer the way he had, trapped in a body, silenced by greed. Daniel's reflection deepened, his voice gaining strength. "I built Carter Innovations to prove I could against every odd, every stereotype. But lying in that bed, I saw the truth. Success isn't what you achieve for yourself, it's what you create for others. Solar Flare is for the families who can't afford to keep the lights on, for the communities written off as too risky by the big energy players. It's for the young engineers in my lab who remind me of myself, hungry, overlooked, but unstoppable." The emotion in his words swelled, a high note of conviction that carried the weight of his journey. He paused, letting the moment settle, his eyes tracing the city below. Atlanta had been his proving ground, a place where he'd fought and won, lost and learned. The betrayal had nearly broken him, but it had also rebuilt him. "I could have walked away," he admitted, his tone softer now, "taken back my company, punished the guilty, and moved on. But that bed taught me something. Power without purpose is empty." Sophia and Ethan had everything: money, status, influence, and still, they wanted more. Enough to try to kill me for it. "I won't make that mistake. My legacy isn't in what I own, it's in what I leave behind." The words were a vow, a new foundation for the empire he was rebuilding. As he spoke, Daniel's thoughts turned to the future. Ethan's cryptic prison message about energy sector titans hinted at a larger conspiracy, but Daniel wasn't chasing shadows, not yet. His focus was on Solar Flare's expansion, on the foundation's growth, on the young minds in his lab who'd carry his vision forward. The hospital had stripped him down to his core, but it had also shown him who he was. A man who thrived in adversity, who found strength in service, who turned pain into progress. Standing there, Daniel felt a surge of purpose, a fire that no betrayal could extinguish. He'd been to the edge of death and back, and what he'd found wasn't just survival, it was meaning. But the horizon held secrets that even Daniel couldn't yet see. 6 months after his triumphant return to Carter Innovations' boardroom in Atlanta, Daniel Carter stood as a man reborn, his purpose forged in the crucible of betrayal. The conspiracy led by his wife, Sophia, and brother, Ethan, had crumbled under the weight of justice, Ethan serving 12 years for attempted murder, Sophia sentenced to 7, and Dr. Harris stripped of his medical license. Solar Flare, the solar energy project they tried to sabotage, now illuminated Atlanta's underserved communities, slashing energy bills and sparking hope. Carter Innovations had transformed, its labs alive with diverse talent, its mission anchored in equity. The Carter Wright Foundation, named for the nurse Olivia who saved him, was revolutionizing healthcare ethics. Yet, as Daniel reflected on his journey from a hospital bed to this moment, he knew the story wasn't over. A larger truth loomed, and his legacy was only beginning to take shape. Standing in the new research lab, Daniel watched young engineers tweak solar flare prototypes, their passion mirroring his own from years ago. The air buzzed with possibility, a stark contrast to the sterile silence of his hospital room where he'd feigned a coma to unmask his betrayers. That experience had stripped him to his core, revealing not just the fragility of trust but the strength of purpose. Solar flare wasn't just technology, it was a promise to communities like the one he'd grown up in, places written off, yet brimming with potential. The foundation wasn't just reform, it was a shield for the vulnerable, a vow that no one would endure what he had. As he walked through the lab, Daniel paused at a glass plaque in the lobby, engraved with Olivia's words from a hospital night. "True strength is how you rise when everything is against you." The words hit him anew, a quiet reminder of the woman who'd risked everything for a stranger. Olivia, now a consultant for the foundation, had become more than an ally. She was a symbol of the courage that had redefined his path. Their partnership had grown, rooted in mutual respect. But Daniel couldn't shake a lingering question. How far would her loyalty extend if the shadows of the conspiracy deepened? The question wasn't just about Olivia, it was about trust itself, a lesson he was still learning. Aisha Thompson, his steadfast board ally, interrupted his thoughts with a call that stirred the embers of suspicion. "Ethan reached out from prison," she said, her voice tight. "He's offering information names of energy sector executives who allegedly backed the sabotage. Big players, Daniel." The revelation landed like a stone in still water, rippling through his calm. Ethan's betrayal had been personal, but this hinted at a broader web, one that could entangle some of the most powerful figures in the industry. Solar flare's potential to disrupt traditional energy markets had made enemies, and Daniel had always sensed the crash was more than family greed. Yet, he shook his head, voice steady. Let him sit with his secrets for now. The truth has a way of breaking free. The decision was strategic, a pause to focus on building rather than chasing ghosts. But the possibility of a larger conspiracy lingered, a shadow that could test everything he'd rebuilt. For now, Daniel turned his energy to Solar Flare's next phase. Plans were underway to expand the project to rural communities across 3 continents, bringing affordable energy to places long neglected. The lab's prototypes promised even greater efficiency, and Daniel's team, many from backgrounds like his own, worked with a fire he recognized. This was more than innovation, it was transformation, a rewriting of who got to dream and who got to build. As he and Olivia finalized expansion strategies that evening, Daniel felt a surge of clarity. The hospital had been his crucible, burning away illusions of invincibility and revealing what mattered, not power for its own sake, but power wielded for others. Sophia and Ethan had chased wealth and status, blind to their emptiness. Daniel had nearly lost everything. That loss, he'd found meaning. His empire was no longer about breaking barriers, it was about building bridges, creating paths for those who'd been told they didn't belong. The scar on his forehead, once a mark of near death, was now a symbol of rebirth. Yet, the unanswered questions hung heavy. Who else had wanted Solar Flare stopped? What forces still watched from the shadows? Daniel didn't have the answers, but he had something stronger, a vision that no conspiracy could dim. As he looked at Olivia, her focus sharp on the plans before them, he saw the same fire that had saved him. Together, they were unstoppable, not because they were fearless, but because they'd learned to rise from fear. Daniel's story, born in a hospital bed and forged in betrayal, was a testament to resilience. It reminded us that our darkest moments, when trust shatters and power fades, can spark our greatest transformations. True strength lies not in what we hold, but in what we create. And for Daniel Carter, that creation was a legacy of light, reaching far beyond the shadows. As the sun sets over Atlanta, Daniel Carter's journey leaves us with a truth that resonates far beyond the walls of Carter Innovations. Betrayed by those closest to him, Stripped of power in a hospital bed, Daniel faced a darkness most of us can only imagine. Yet, from that abyss, he forged a legacy not of vengeance, but of purpose. I learned something in that silence, Daniel reflects, his voice steady with hard-won wisdom. Real strength isn't in what you control, it's in what you choose to build when everything's been taken from you. Solar Flare, born from his vision, now lights up communities forgotten by the world, proving that one man's fight can spark a revolution. The Cartwright Foundation, inspired by Olivia's courage, ensures no patient will suffer the betrayal he endured. For Daniel, the scar on his forehead isn't just a mark of survival, it's a reminder that our greatest battles reveal our truest selves. This story teaches us that adversity, however brutal, can be a crucible for transformation. When trust shatters and the odds stack against us, we have a choice: to crumble or to create. Daniel chose to create a legacy of equity, hope, and resilience that outshines the greed that tried to bury him. His journey reminds us that true power lies in lifting others, in turning pain into progress, and in finding meaning where others see only loss. So, what's your crucible? What will you build from your challenges? If Daniel's story has moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in the power of rising again, hit that like button to share the light. Drop a comment below, tell us what this story means to you or how you've turned your own struggles into strength. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more stories that ignite your heart and fuel your purpose. Join us as we uncover more tales of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable human spirit. The next chapter is waiting, be part of it.